gang shit. That's all I'm on.
Before we get started, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them just have large rear ends. Okay? There's many different strokes for different folks. Before we start this episode, I just got done watching Joe and Ice Cube, and well, I didn't feel the need to play the whole video. If you are a political extremist in the US right now and you're pushing either left or right agendas, I'd like to illustrate a pretty simple point. If you're pushing the pendulum one way or the other, if you're pushing things up, they will eventually come down. Things don't go in one direction forever, so you're swinging a pendulum, and the farther you push it, the farther it's going to swing back in the direction you don't want it to go. Moderation is key, not just in your life, but as a community, as a society, collectively. Moderation keeps us together. Extremism separates us. Which do you think is better? So in 1987, NWA was receiving letters from the FBI saying that they couldn't use swear words and they couldn't say F the police. And now look at where we are today. I mean, you've got a huge pendulum that swung right there. Now rap is the #1 genre, makes more money, gets more attention, more people like it and listen to it than any other genre, and that's in a very short period of time that we went from law enforcement writing threatening letters about the lyrics to it being one of the largest cultural sensations. So I hope that people are being thoughtful and understanding what they're doing with their time and their energy, and the solution is not to further divide ourselves. The solution is to bring everybody together, because guess what? There's very few people that are benefiting from this system, and there's a lot of us that are being disenfranchised by it. So if the lot of us that were being disenfranchised by it actually took a stand, came together, organized, and just, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to get the people that have these crazy agendas out of office, and we are going to elect people that align with our best interests, because the people that are in right now are running this country into the ground.
You read the Bible, it's a pretty interesting book, the first half, man, when it talks about the kings and their want for women. You look at King David and his want for Bathsheba, sent the man to the front lines to die, you know.
And it's been throughout history. People have been involved in those kind of situations. The wrong person in your life.
I actually think that's what parts of the Bible are about. Again, I'm not a believer in even Abrahamic religion. When I was raised, so I'm trying to take lessons from what I was learning. A lot of that shit was just about, bro.
Yeah.
Gets crazy, bro. You know what I'm saying? Gets crazy.
That's what their version of it gets crazy,
bro. It gets crazy, bro.
Yeah.
You know, think about what you're doing.
Lessons to learn.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for, bro. You wanted her, bro.
Yeah.
You know, your first child is going to die with her.
Yeah, you smash the hornet's nest, and what do you think is going to happen? And I'm not a verbatim believer either, but what I do believe that the Bible was a unifying document for all of us to understand good and evil and collectively agree these things are good, we should do these things are bad, this is negative, this is harmful to the fabric of society, and ultimately introduces chaos and will end in revolution. Because it's not sustainable. That was the goal, was try to be sustainable. Imagine being in a college course and the teacher says, turn to page 35, we're going to learn some shit. Everybody has a different textbook, so everybody turns to page 35 and nobody fucking knows what the hell's going on. Does that ring any bells? How do you feel about America right now? Do you think people know what the fuck is going on? No, because nobody knows what page to turn to, let alone what it says.
You know, it's like, God damn, bro, but you get an amazingly talented kid out of it too. You get to redeem it all, but God's gonna let you feel it a little.
How much would you pay to have been there when they first started writing that stuff down? Like, try to figure out, what did you know? Where are you getting these stories from?
I just would have liked to inject, hey man, can we make sure Africa you know, we could talk more about the black folks. You know, that's all I would have just been like.
Yeah, how come
like
it's not in there?
Yeah, like, bro, like, come on, right? You know we were there. Like,
I mean,
not only there, you know, you
that right there, that's a perfect example of why, as much as there's good to it, there's also some glaring omissions. And people that really believe in it, word for word, no additions, no updates since, 2,000 plus years. Like, we wrote a lot, and then no revisions, no additional information, no updated guidance. It can never be touched again. It's perfect, but we forgot black people. How does that make any sense, you know? But I'm not saying that just like people, just because you say one bad thing, just because you have one idea that maybe you need to discuss it a little bit more and understand that that's not good, I'm not going to throw you and everything about you out and say that you don't deserve to talk. I'm never going to associate with you. If you have some bad ideas, we need to engage with you. The people need to engage with you and help try and turn that idea around. If you just kick people out who have shitty ideas, they have shitty ideas on the edge of town now. If you bring them in and you have white people visit. I saw a documentary about a black guy that was visiting with the KKK and converting these guys from white supremacists to understanding that black people are not their enemy. So it's like we learn nothing, we learn a lesson and we're like, wow, this is amazing. And then 10, 20 years later, we totally forget the moral of the story, totally forget the entire story, because we're too busy watching someone shake their ass on Instagram. I don't know, what are you guys doing with your time? You don't give a shit about the future? Yeah. Ooh. I like the way that jiggles. Yeah. Good job.
Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, all this shit once was just Nubia, even before it was called Egypt. Like, it's like, come on, bro. Like a lot of this shit is based on, like, why do the Ten Commandments sound eerily like these affirmations from Egypt? Like, I would have said, but man, I gotta just say, man, to Western society, propaganda, man, y'all have mastered this shit. Whoever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? When the church decided,
Killer Mike is spitting straight goddamn facts. I don't care what side of the issue is. I don't care what side of the issue you're on. The propaganda machine is fully ginned up. And if you're falling for this shit, if you're still believing that that's true, what they're trying to tell you, news with a bias, news with an agenda, if you're on board with that, you're helping wheel the Trojan horse into the gates of Troy. Okay? And then you go get drunk and fall asleep and we're fucking screwed.
Blacks and Jewish people, man, they're like animals. You can enslave them. And Ferdinand and Isabella was like, fuck it, let's run this shit. Y'all propaganda campaign been mean, man. And not because it necessarily subjugated people like me to the brutalities of slavery and shit like that. It convinced poor white people.
Yeah, it's not just subjugation. It's brainwashing of the actual subjects of the nation that is seeming to benefit from this. How much benefit did the world get from slavery? I mean, how do we view it now? Did we view it as a benefit? People then did. You think people then were speaking out against it? History will be viewed differently in hindsight. So people who aren't thinking critically about what they're doing today, whether it's evil or not, people in the future ain't going to have sympathy for that. Ignorance is no excuse. So you can go along with the crowd and think that you're righteous and protected and you're on the side of right and justice, but if deep down, when you really think about what you're doing, it's harming other people, it's making life for other people worse, good luck. Good luck.
People that we're good for you. The one of the most brutal things about not wanting to know true and factual history is you don't understand how you're being fucked over too. It's like if you look at the word cracker, Cracker is not
Saltine.
something that black people made up. I used to think, you know, when you were young, you would hear,
Good
oh, it means
crackers.
whipped cracker. You know what I'm
Some
saying?
peanut butter?
It wasn't. It was a derogatory term that people
Whip
in the
cracker.
United Kingdom used for countryer, slower white folks. Crackers and gypsies. Gypsies were the people known to populate Upper Georgia, Lower Tennessee, Alabama, places like that. Redneck was also one of the terms. We didn't make these terms up. These terms came from the master class, or what they would call the planter class, who used poor white people. And when too many, Tim Wise talked about this, when too many poor white people and black people who were seen as equals at one point kind of united and had a few rebellions, they were like, no, we got to put an end to this shit. You know, so I would just say, man, I wish that whoever was writing the Bible or remixing it would have put a little more commonality in there so you wouldn't get all this weird, funky division, and the masters still kind of rule us all, you know?
Well, it's still always the people that are in charge that
Yeah.
are disseminating that information
Yeah.
initially, and they always have some sort of an interest in framing it in a way that suits them the best. Like even in the foundation of the country, all men are created equal.
Yeah.
So what they had to do to justify that is to say that black men are 3/5 of a man.
Yep, three,
So
yep.
they're literally putting it into
Yep.
the way they structure.
That's just as disgusting as anything else. The worst things that are going on today, treating human beings, fellow human beings like that is just as disgusting as the worst things that are going on today. So, the bad things in human beings where we do bad stuff to other humans and we don't have empathy. Empathy is not given to you freely. You aren't born with empathy. It's something that you have to work a little bit at. You got to think, oh, how would I feel if I was in this person's shoes? Nobody back then when they were writing the law was really taking that thought seriously and saying, how would I feel being called 3/5 of a person? You know, I mean, we're enlightened on one hand, but we're not on the other. And that is still true today. As far as we've come, we are still only half enlightened. We're missing some key pieces. Human beings without a lot of work and introspection do not become enlightened. You have to, your ego, the smallest crumb will make it grow. In order to remain humble and not let your ego drive you, your ego is your ego makes everything about you. You're the center of the universe because you watch everything through your eyes. You hear everything through your ears. So your movie is playing out and you're the center of the universe as far as you're concerned. It takes a lot of thought to override that because that's the default setting, is just to be an ignorant, self-absorbed asshole. You got to think about other people.
The country.
Yeah. And there was an economic incentive to do it, you know.
Yes.
And that doesn't make it right, but it helps my community understand that the shit's about money and why they did it. But why did the church do it?
It's just
So you got to think about that though. Before we get to America,
yeah.
Something that's never taught in school, but I believe that it has part of the abolition of slavery is the Industrial Revolution came out with equipment. So now we no longer needed slave labor, and now suddenly we were enlightened enough to free the slaves. But I don't think that was done in a vacuum. I think that was done. You can if you're really interested in the topic of the abolition of slavery and the motives behind it, that's a huge discussion. I'm not going to get into it today. But one of the things that is not really ever directly correlated is the fact that the internal combustion engine, well, it was steam back when the abolition was, but we were starting to mechanize. The Industrial Revolution was making it so that you didn't have to have massive amounts of labor in order to get anything done. You could start to use machinery. So anytime you think something's being done for altruistic reasons, you can usually, sadly, find a monetary motivation, a financial motivation for most things that are done that are progressive and good for humanity. Not many things are done just out of the goodness of someone's heart. It's usually a practical decision. It's sad but true.
and I guess the church, the Catholic Church at one point says, we can go ahead and tell everybody all human beings are equal. Let's stop bullshit. But instead they choose to say Jews and black people are different. And Ferdinand and Isabella and Portugal and said, well, fuck it, it's on. And the transatlantic slave trade starts. So my thing is getting back to why was the Bible written like that, gets back to, so why would the church allow that? And then you get to ask, well, if the church allowed that, then why aren't they included in there? You know, and beyond who's the bad guy, what empires in Africa are we not talking about? What kings have we not talked about? What great and glorious? Because the Greeks looked at Africans like they were gods.
Yes.
They look at these motherfuckers. These are the illest motherfuckers on earth.
Whoever was there during the construction of the pyramids has created the most insane structures the world's ever known.
Count Volney says, and they made him retract it, but he said of ruins of empires, he said, it is obvious to me that the people we now subjugate to slavery, these dark-haired, kinky-haired, these dark, kinky-haired people were once the rulers and builders. They put this shit here. He said that. He was an Orientalist, which were people who were sent out of their countries to, you know, to go study Asia, Eastern African shit. This motherfucker standing there like, the motherfuckers that built this shit, somehow we've subjugated slavery. And when people say, you know, if you were smart enough to build that.
So everything can be a debate. This is the section, this is a Reddit post if you want to look this up. And this is the section. In his work, Williams posited that plantation agriculture in the Caribbean generated tremendous financial gains for their absentee plantation owners, which was reinvested in England in industry. Williams rightly argues that slavery was essential in the production of plantation products like sugar, and the tremendous profits earned from the plantation agriculture was transferred to Britain rather than reinvested in the islands. Finally, he argues that as industry became more profitable than plantation agriculture, the new economy eventually made plantations unprofitable and therefore led to the abolition in the 1930s, which destroyed slavery in the British Empire. And then they're going to say that there's arguments against that. That's fine. Everything will always be a debate. I encourage the other side to challenge any sort of held beliefs, but to me, it just makes sense. I mean, we see it today. I worked in a factory where skilled machinists were already replaced by CNC machines, computer numerically controlled machines that machine parts according to computer code. And the justification for $500,000 machines is they never take days off, they don't make mistakes, you can hire cheaper operators and reduce your wage requirements, your payroll obligation by a substantial amount. You can have unskilled labor, and your machines are the experts. They don't backtalk. You don't have to give them health insurance. There's all kinds of benefits, even to our current technological revolution, where jobs are being replaced, and we haven't even mentioned the word AI. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, how could you be made a slave? Genghis Khan wasn't particularly smart. He was violent and brutal. And a lot of times the people who won have been the most violent and brutal.
Well, Genghis Khan was both, but
yeah,
he was both violent, brutal, and very intelligent.
But just intelligent from a military way?
Yes.
Okay.
Tactically.
No, but I'm talking beyond
he was
military. Like,
horrific.
what did he build?
Oh, there was no building.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it was just figuring out how to destroy empires.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's not the same though. It's building
military
an
machine.
empire.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
No, it's definitely not the same.
Yeah, it doesn't. I can.
He built a war machine. He built a conquering machine. He didn't need to build. Why build when I can just conquer your whole country? Let you do all the work and then just take it from you.
And I know some gang leaders that are comparable to war generals, right? But the question becomes, who are the people that are going to build the next empire?
Right.
And I think that's where the danger in the old world of when the church was really government, the church conspiring with warlords for certain things to be destroyed so they can then come and assume control of. You know, because ultimately, even the most brutal people don't end up winning. The most shrewd people do. That small circle of brilliant
Speaking
motherfuckers
of
that
the
know how to
church
control.
and war,
like,
remember this?
You know, beyond Genghis, who were his advisors? Who profited most from it?
Let's see, how many? That's a lot of people back then. 1.7 million people back in those days. I mean, that's a substantial portion of the population. Let's see. So let's cut it right in the middle. Population of the world in 1100, because that's right in the middle. Crusades were 1096 to 12 something. Estimates 350 million in that 1400. Where's hold on. Okay, 450 million. So that's I mean 1.7 million out of 450 million. That's, you could move the decimals over 10 million, 4 billion.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he was famous for capturing armies and incorporating their generals.
Yeah, that's.
He would, you know, and if someone tried to surrender, he would just kill them because he would say, "Well, what are you going to do with me? Like, why would I do that?"
Oh shit.
So they would say, "I've surrendered. I'm coming to you." And he'd go, "Oh, really? Well, I'm going to fucking kill you because you have no loyalty, you piece of shit."
Oh wow.
But he would take over with certain generals and certain he would bring them in and just accept them. He was completely open to any religion. He goes, I don't give a fuck.
He was brilliant for that.
What your religion is.
He was brilliant for that.
You could be whatever you want. We're here to fuck people up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fuck, because apparently he left
fuck.
a lot of descendants.
Oh my
1 in
God.
6,
Yeah,
baby.
like one of
Insane
us
amounts.
3 has Genghis Khan blood in our body. Apparently.
It's something crazy like that. We've talked about it many times, and I always forget what the percentage is. This is back to haters.
Yeah.
They can get inspiration from people. You get juice.
Yo, shouts out to that lady who's Emmy nominated that hates me. God bless, God bless your soul, woman. I had never thought about winning an Emmy in my life, but because you hated on me when I got, and she hates me for the most ridiculous reason. God bless her soul. She hates me just because I'm not a Democrat, Du Bois. You know what I mean? Like I've had Democrats I like and I push for them, especially locally. But I'm sorry, lady, I can't be a Du Bois. And God bless me to fuck around and get rich. I don't take money from any politicians or political party. So if you see me stand next to someone, it's because I really believe. And if they don't convince me to believe, I'm not going to stand next to them, right? She wanted me to stand next to somebody. I'm like, sorry, lady, I've had some conversations with her. I've tried my best, but I'm not hating, but it's just that ain't my thing. But this chick was just like, I'm going to use my platform to, and I'm like, you don't really have a platform?
Yeah.
But in her bio, she's an Emmy-nominated actress. Man, winning that Emmy sure felt good. I blocked her, but I'm sure someone has told her. But I'm just like, holding it, I hope she sees the picture. Like, yeah, thank God for your hate, lady, because it made me care. I went to the ceremonies and walked away with a trophy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And to her, there was a study that was done recently about left-wing authoritarianism and the way certain
Isn't
people
that
behave.
fucking bizarre?
And that it's just it's like a bunch of different psychological conditions that are.
The left is supposed to be the party of freedom and liberty and liberals, I mean, it's in the word. It used to be the rights that were conservative, trying to lock everything down and no more speech, hey, you can't say that. And now it's like completely reversed. Just another example of the pendulum swing. I mean, Democrats were the slave owners back then. Yeah. History of Democratic Party, rooted in slavery. Ooh. Ooh, not a good look.
They're almost indistinguishable from like horrible narcissism, horrible like psychotic behavior. Like, see if you can find it, what their conclusions were. But at the fringes, when people, what happens is when you have groups that are ideological groups, whether it's the left or the right, you're going to get people that just join that group that are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And if you don't call it out, then you have a giant problem because people are going to associate you with whatever the worst aspects of
that
your,
group. Yeah.
like right-wing Proud Boys, like that kind of shit. The experts somehow overlooked authoritarians on the left. Many psychologists wrongly assume that coercive attitudes exist only among conservatives. Of course, it's a human characteristic.
I did a speech for FIRE, for the organization FIRE, and I missaid, I'm sorry, the brown shirts of Italy, but what I meant was the brown shirts of Germany, that as the left, as you accomplish more power politically, don't use it as a bludgeon in the same way you've perceived it to be used against you.
Right.
That you have to rule, quote unquote, in a more fair and equitable way. You can't let your fair and equitable thoughts become totalitarian.
Yeah,
you know
you also can't give it.
I mean, I couldn't say it better than what he just said. And the pejorative sense of ideology comes largely from classical social theorists, especially Karl Marx. Literally, the dude that is behind socialist ideology and communist, undertones, all in that same thing. He spoke pejoratively about ideologues, and what do you have on both the left and the right? Just crazy, insane, committed ideologues who aren't critically thinking and looking at their positions. They're just committed. We're on either side of the barbed wire. We're lobbing mustard gas at each other, and nobody's stopping to ask, what in the fuck are we doing over some dirt?
Into this crazy instinct that we all humans have to be tribal.
Yes.
And I am a Democrat. I am a lifelong blue no matter who. You can't. That's not wise.
And that's both. Yeah, it's both sides. But we tend.
Yes.
No,
I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where my grandmother
I'm a
was
Democrat.
an SCLC member from Tuskegee, had been a part, born in 1932, had been a part of civil rights stuff. My grandfather. So my grandmother grew up on a farm, could go to school. They weren't wealthy, but they had food, they had sustenance, they had education. My grandfather grew up working in a sawmill at 8 years old because his father abandoned his family and he had to feed his mothers and sisters. So his mentality was much more libertarian, I would say. His mentality was, if God gave you an appetite and a mind to build a fishing rod, you should be able to catch fish. And my grandmother was like, you shouldn't complain about having to buy a fishing license because the game warden has to make sure things are legit and somebody's to clean up the park. So I got a chance to see these wonderful political arguments between these two people that loved each other. My grandmother, college-educated woman, my grandfather drove a truck and hauled moonshine and gambled, you know what I mean? Yeah. He married this God-fearing woman. I never saw him walk in the church. But they had these great debates that showed me that there are no absolutes, that there are going to be some things from each side that make sense to run a good household. And I watched them just do it right. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad I saw that because I don't feel married to any ideology.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's important.
Shouts out to Betty and Willie. God bless the dead, man.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks that things are black and white in the world, picture a standoff. Two men and their sons all in a room. Two men are armed. Either one of the kids, if their father gets killed, is going to view that as bad. Whose house are they in? Which of the two men owns the house? Who's trespassing? What has been said leading up to it? We don't know any of those things, but each of the four has a personal truth about what would be a good and evil outcome of that situation. But it doesn't take into consideration any of the surrounding circumstances, the background story. So each person's individual personal truth about good and evil should not supersede the idea of, oh, this guy broke in and is threatening the other guy's family and threatening to take things from him. That guy defends himself in his own house. And if we don't have a clear understanding of your right to defend yourself and all these things are accepted and a lot of thought has been put into this, we wind up arguing who's right in that situation, because from each person's perspective, from a relative perspective, any one of these people could argue that what the other person did was wrong and what I did was right. We were out on the street, we were starving, I needed some food for my boy, so yeah, I came in the house and I said, give me some food, and the guy said, we don't have any to spare, sorry mister. So I pulled my gun and tried to shoot him, and he shot me instead. And here we are. Like, you know, human interactions are messy. They're not clearly right and wrong. Everybody wants to put everything in a box. Over here's right, over here's wrong. That's not how it works. It's complicated.
Getting attached to ideologies is always a bad idea, particularly when we like human beings in America have two choices.
Yeah.
You have two choices,
Yeah.
the left and the right, and people just like they adhere to whatever this side's doing because they want them to win.
Yeah.
And then you have some weird problematic figures like Trump who comes along, and like there's a lot of never Trumper Republicans.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. It's like,
But I say in this crazy ass country, pay attention to the people who have no chance of winning sometimes, because they're gonna be some truths told. Like, no matter what you feel about Trump, there was a moment in that debate. Chappelle talks about it when Trump said, "Of course these loopholes exist. They exist." He was talking to Hillary.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah, we'll take advantage of the loophole.
Yeah.
Because they also
Tell her to
exist for
close
people who
them.
doing it in your campaign. I was like, finally,
Yes.
a member of the oligarchy.
It's her and her friends that made it so that I can do that. He literally said that. He's like, yeah, everybody's going to take advantage of them as long as they're on the books. Tell the lawmakers to get rid of them. We can't use them. You know, like, it's legal. And she's standing up there criticizing him for not paying enough tax. Meanwhile, what position does she hold again? Is she a legislator? Does she help to make the laws in the country? What am I missing?
Oligarchy class says, yeah, motherfucker, we're cheating.
Yeah.
And I was just like, at that point, Americans should have said hard reset.
Yeah.
Like, they literally should have said pre-Eisenhower, hard reset. We're gonna reform all this shit.
Yep.
The money's gonna work different. None of us said a goddamn thing.
Not too
And
late,
you know
boys.
why?
Boys and girls,
we're all
men and women.
we're
Not
all
too late.
complacent in some capacity.
We
We're
can
all a
stand up.
company
We just have to organize.
in this grand scheme that's fucking us over. And if you don't have an educated constituency of proletariat, it's all just going to kind of reform. So, like, doing this election, people's like, who are you supporting? I was like, I don't give a fuck nationally. I give a fuck that Cornel West is in the race, because I'm interested to see what he's going to say. Kennedy, I'm interested just to hear, whatever crazy shit people think he's, whoever else is running. I'm just interested because the two parties we know we got, but there are all these little voices that pop up, that little grains of truth. They stand no chance of winning in some cases, but let me just take a grain of what you're saying, and that way I'll know what to take back to the party that wins and say, hey, what about this? Why do we have money for this, but we don't have money for this, Like Sanders, people told me, like, Mike, you're a business guy, you like money. Sanders even said, hey, I think you're going to be a billionaire. I'm going to tax the shit out of you, too. We were laughing and joking backstage at the Amazon worker strike that we were both supporting. But my thing is, I don't want to pay the government more taxes. But if I got to pay more taxes, let me pay what the guy's playing who's going to educate kids in trades and scholarship for free. Because that way I'm making a 20-year investment so that my 16-year-old daughter, when she's 36, has a much better country full of educated kids versus I bought more missiles. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. That's possible.
But
the idea that that's not possible
But
is
if
crazy.
you don't put them in now, I am a millionaire. I'm going to do my best to protect my fucking money.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't born a millionaire. You know what I mean? I was born just a working class black kid named Michael.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Michael never liked working at Six Flags or AutoZone or UPS. So once Michael fucked around and figured out how to sing and dance and make some money, Michael wants to save more of his money than spend,
So this is ChatGPT's response to how could we turn America away from extremism and help people become more moderate again, so we can agree and move forward together. Quality education, media literacy, interfaith and intercultural dialogue, political civility and compromise, community engagement, social media responsibility, counter narratives, mental health support, youth engagement, policy solutions, law enforcement and security, international collaboration. So this is an AI, You don't trust me, you don't trust humans. I mean, so far, I don't know. Who knows? It's designed by humans, so I'm sure we've already trained it to lie. But that's what it says. So, I don't know. Okay, we're just gonna keep going. I got 3 more episodes, little clips pulled up, so we're gonna just roll through.
Tucker Carlson interview on Full Send.
Yes, I saw. I didn't watch the entire thing, but I saw a few clips of it when he's talked about how much he regrets supporting the war in Iraq.
I love Killer Mike's segment, though. Let me just say that before we move on. He speaks very, very eloquently, and he and I apparently share a lot of the same ideas about how we could make America better. Because I know making America great, oh man, that would trigger a lot of people. You don't want to make America great.
That's what you're referring to? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe him. I think he really means it.
I believe him too.
Sometimes there's people there's John McCain types who go or Hillary Clinton, they'll admit, okay, it was a mistake, but then they still support every subsequent war after that. And it doesn't see, whereas Tucker is like, I'm so ashamed that I supported this. I'll never forgive myself for it, and has opposed every subsequent war after that. And I'm like, okay, I think this guy really believes it.
He's different than people want to pretend he is. First of all, the guy was a deadhead.
Yeah.
You know that? He used to follow the dead around?
Yeah.
So for sure dropped acid.
That'd be my guess.
I would. How else can you enjoy the music?
I think it's legally required that you've taken acid at least once if you're going to enjoy the Grateful Dead. I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't brushed up on the statutes.
Comes alive to
Wavy
LSD,
gravy,
according
baby.
to my friends who've been there and done that.
It's really interesting what the public perception of Tucker Carlson is, or particularly how polarizing he is to people that it's almost like they're describing a different person than he actually is.
Right.
I think he was the most interesting person in cable news, the most thoughtful, most intelligent. Like he was really I don't agree with him on anything. On my
he plays dumb. He's the real life version of the Colbert character that was played on Comedy Central. And he does the same thing. I don't know if he did this prior to Stephen, but he does the same thing. Stephen would ask a question, he would get your answer, and then he would say, "Why is that?" He would not put the words in your mouth, and neither does Tucker. He just says, "Why is that? That sounds like this. Why is that?" And then he just waits for you to explain. That's an excellent interviewer. He's letting you talk. Most interviewers are like, "Why did you do this?" And before you even answer, is it because you're a bad person and you want this to happen? Leading the witness, objection.
My podcast, we used to do a segment, or I had just done it so many times that we started joking about it being a segment that we called Contra Carlson, because I was just disagreeing with him. Like, he had all these economic ideas that I completely disagree with. And I disagree with a lot of stuff he said, but he was like such a, the lone voice in really the corporate press who was completely opposed to the military industrial complex, completely opposed to big pharma and all of the COVID insanity. It was really good on speaking up about a lot of really important issues that you would think a good leftist would at least appreciate that he's good on that issue, you know? And some of them did.
The leftists don't give a fuck about your freedom anymore. The leftists want you to obey. That's what freedom is now. Freedom is the freedom from choice. Freedom is, here you go, here's a plate of shit. This saves you from deciding what's for dinner because we chose dog shit for you. And dog shit every night for the rest of your life. Oh, but we're going to have caviar because we don't like dog shit. But it's great for you. Actually, for poor people, we've got a study that just was put out. Caviar for poor people actually is carcinogenic. It causes cancer. So just shut the fuck up and mind your business. Shut it.
This is what he's the guy who's having Glenn Greenwald on his show. You know what I mean? He's the guy who's having Aaron Mattei and Jimmy Dore.
Yes.
These aren't right wingers.
Yes.
He's having he's having them.
A lot of left wingers.
And it was very interesting. He wasn't a partisan. He would be completely against the Republican Party, was viciously critical of the Republican Party, hates the Republican establishment. And even the stuff I've seen so many people be like, he bought into Trump's claims that the election.
If you want change, the first thing you have to do is stop sucking the establishment's dick. The establishment is not going to change shit. I don't care whether it's left establishment or right establishment. They're going to placate you. They're going to bullshit you. They're going to propagandize you. They're going to motivate you to fight for the cause. And at the end of the day, they're going to lie to you and betray you after they get what they want. But sure, go ahead. Genius. Play right into their hand.
Was stolen. And I'm like, I don't know, dude, do you watch him? Because I watched his show, and that's actually not true. He was the guy, he took a lot of heat from this from right-wingers, that immediately following the election of 2020, he really aggressively called out Trump's lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, I think was the other one, because they were making claims about the Dominion voting machines, that they flipped millions of votes. And Tucker Carlson went on his show, and he goes, okay, if this is true, it's the biggest story in the history of the United States of America. So what evidence do you have? And he's like, we have reached out privately to Trump's lawyers. We've gotten nothing in return. So to be clear, they're making this claim and providing nothing to back it up.
Okay, I don't care to get into this because there's no real way to go back and suss out one way or the other. But for a voting system to be transparent, people that are not computer literate can understand a paper ballot going in a box and then being removed from the box and physically being counted. Once you introduce computer code into the equation, your normal average person cannot read computer code. So in order for the system to be transparent and understandable for the voter, the idea of computer code being between your vote and the results, you are dependent on other experts. Just like back when no one could read, so you were dependent on the church to read you the Bible and tell you what it was about before they printed it and distributed it and people could read, the average person could read. Prior to that, they were just taking their word for it. That voting system, it's electronic and it's really great. Wow, so cool. Technology. It is not transparent. Your average American cannot understand it, cannot verify it, cannot be a witness or an observer during the process. So whether or not it is good or bad, whether or not it is true or false, whether or not there was corruption in the last election or in the voting machines or not, your average person cannot witness it because it is convoluted and obscured inside a computer program.
He really was like, no. Now, what he has said later is they'll pull quotes and be like, yeah, but he referred to 2020 as a scam or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but you don't watch his show. So you don't get that, like, what he was saying was, yeah, the Dominion vote flipping thing is bullshit. No one's ever provided any evidence of that. But the fact that big tech and the intelligence agencies work together to undermine the Hunter Biden story to get Joe Biden across the finish line is bullshit. Like, that's,
that
you know
is
what
a
I mean?
scam.
And that's a
The thing that needs to be understood is it's not micro scams. It's not a scam. The election wasn't a scam. The whole system is a scam. The media is working with the government. The agencies are working with the media. The whole thing is a scam. It doesn't stop when the election starts. Like, it wasn't just the ballot counting. It's the whole process leading up to it, suppressing stories, the Twitter files. You had agencies requesting content removal in order to sway elections. The government is requesting removals to sway and put the propaganda blocks where they need them to be. And now Trump's on trial for inciting people to go to, or no, I guess they don't care about that. He's on trial for taking papers home. And it's like, who really incited that, you know? I think the American people are getting fed up to the point where people are so confused why there's so many mass shootings. I'm not. I think that more and more people in America are desperate and hopeless and confused and don't see a way out and don't see anyone moving things in a good direction that's benefiting them. They just have more and more taken from them every year, whether it's purchasing power or the right to speak or or express themselves without getting fired or their family getting attacked. Things for your average American on both sides of the political aisle who are not rich, the poor, because there's only rich and poor. There's more than 1 million, and anyone, if you got less than $1 million in the bank, we are poor, and there's a lot of us. So there's no need for violence. We got plenty of numbers. We just need to organize. The voting system still exists, and if you exert enough pressure on it in a concerted manner, the corruption cannot stand. The corruption can only stand if it's somewhat 50-50. They got to keep us 50-50 divided, and then they can push and manipulate. As long as it's pretty close to even, they can shove the balance which way they want it, and no one notices. But if it is clearly 90% Americans are sick of the shit, and we're done with the fighting and the extremist politics, and it's time for a return to center, somewhere where we all can be like, oh, this is good for Americans. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, male, female, whatever else you are, foxes, fucking leopards and cheetahs and vampires, zombies, all are welcome. It's all inclusive, but it's good for us, not good for this many people, good for all of us. Maybe not good for the rich people, but that's what the pendulum I'm talking about is, It'll swing.
Scam. And that's a completely reasonable position to take. Again, it's just, look at this, dude. Don Lemon is out at CNN, right? I promise you, whoever replaces Don Lemon has the same exact views as Don Lemon and the same exact views of everybody else at CNN. And that's not true for Tucker Carlson.
Right.
At least there was a guy out there who would disagree with the rest of the people at his network.
Yeah.
Disagree with both political parties.
He's really designed for the internet.
I hope he goes there.
He's going to, unless they've paid him off to if I was a person in a position of power and a wild card like Tucker Carlson got released from Fox News, and maybe Rumble makes a deal.
You got 169 million views in your first 2 episodes.
How big his show? It could make that app. It could make that platform. If Tucker Carlson goes over there, it would be worth it for them to invest a considerable amount of money. But
you're my boy, Tucker.
If I was Fox News, that's the last thing I would want. So I would make sure that we have him locked up for the entire term of some contract, some no-compete, and pay him off.
The rumor is that Murdoch fired him for talking about good and evil and some biblical concepts. It made him uncomfortable. That's my understanding of the situation. There's a lot of controversy about this. There's articles that say different things, but Murdoch, the owner of Fox, also supposedly ended his engagement with his fiancée when she became evangelical and started reading the Bible. So he hates God. And a lot of the rich people hate God too, because as long as you have morality and right and wrong, you won't go along with their bullshit. But if they can remove any sort of morality out of you and get you to indulge yourself and worship just money and power at a personal level, then you look up and you say, wow, that person has even more money and power. I'm going to worship them because that's who I really want to be. I've only got this amount of money and power. They've got it all. So by removing the Bible and that whole thing, they can become the new gods of the religion based on capitalism and law and order, because God is dead and we killed him and we'll never wash the blood off of our hands. So
you'd be better off just giving him the same amount of money he made when he was on the air.
Well, and I wonder
him opposing you.
I wonder what he's already under contract for. You know what I
Right.
mean? There may already be some clause in his contract that says, if we leave, there's X amount of time. I don't know.
They're fucking Fox News, man. They're smart.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. But it
Although-
was very shocking seeing him leave.
Yes, I
boy, Joe is giving them the benefit of the doubt. They are stupid, and so are the other ones. They're all stupid. The reason they're stupid is because they're not enlightened. They're driven by money. They're not driven by altruistic things, so they are empirically stupid. If you're not on this earth trying to make the most of your time, if you're here to be an evil piece of shit, then you're not smart. I don't care how successful you are monetarily. Success is not just money. You can be rich and miserable. Success is having a good time here, forming good relationships, getting true feelings of satisfaction from the things that you do instead of just financial rewards.
I was surprised, although in hindsight, one of those things where like I was surprised right away, and then like 2 days later, I'm like, how was he ever even there? Like, how would this guy was on the 8 p.m. hour at Fox News saying the CIA killed Kennedy? Like, how was that ever a real thing? You know,
Right.
like
He
it's
did
like
say that.
it's insane. He was like, but what's crazy to me is that like so many
They did.
progressives have like.
Kennedy files still can't be released. You've got him trying to shut down the military-industrial complex and pull us out of Vietnam. So you could have had high-level military. I mean, Alex Jones says that the largest assassination organization in the world is Army officers. And you can think what you want about Alex Jones. I used to think that he was crazy and it was funny. Now I think he's crazy for saying the things that he does. So many things have come true that now I am genuinely concerned when I hear something very crazy from Alex Jones. I am concerned because I believe that there is at least an element of truth to it, and that's horrifying. So then he was going after organized crimes. He had mob, potentially hitmen that wanted to kill him. He was trying to make the agencies beholden to the government. Previously, they were operating above the law, basically. So you had agency guys that wanted to kill him. I mean, he was pissing everybody off. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his nephew, is saying some of the same things and raging against the machine, which I fucking love, but I hope he doesn't get killed because he is saying some bold things. And this is a Democrat. This is a Democrat, ladies and gentlemen, who is being called a right-wing extremist because he is espousing views that are not acceptable to those who want to shove this country's fucking face in the mud.
It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or something. It's like, is this the real you, man? Have you just been replaced with an NPC? The 8 p.m. hour at Fox News is saying the CIA killed Kennedy. That's not interesting to you?
Right.
That's not like I'm not saying you have to agree with him on everything, but like that's not that's different than Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
This is a different world we're living in now.
Yeah. But I think dogs, they need something, man. They need exercise. They need love. They're
Yeah.
like they're a little version of you in some strange way.
Yep.
You know, and they're a reflection of the owner in some strange way.
Do you buy into the idea that like dogs and their owners kind of start looking like each other?
Yeah, people always say that. I don't think I look like Marshall. He doesn't look like me, but he's the sweetest.
He does when you have your rough costume on.
I don't know. That's the original Marshall. That's a wolf. That's what's crazy. That used to be a wolf.
Right.
That someone took the most ferocious, predatory beast of the forest that operates in packs and they communicate telepathically.
Yeah.
And they turned that thing into this adorable love's poem.
I love these things. Forget how this goes. I think it's left. I think it's left, right, libertarian, authoritarian. So this is the Wojak compass for who killed JFK. So without getting into their positions, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Soviets, Fidel, LBJ, FBI, Secret Service, JFK. That doesn't make any sense. Dr. James Carrico, Lee Harvey Oswald, Walter Cronkite, Jackie Kennedy, Oliver Stone, Dallas Police, Racist Texan, the Mafia, Abraham Zapruder, Jack Ruby. Oh, Jackie, because, I mean, he was cheating on her all the time. Anyway, moving on.
Punch.
Dude, okay. when was the last time this connects? When was the last time you read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Oh, it's been a long time.
Okay. I think I must have read it when I was in high school
me
and
too.
just didn't pay attention. It's completely different from the movie. Like 100% different.
Or
It's
maybe I never read it.
Ken Kesey. He was like
Ken
Pa-
Kesey wrote it?
yeah.
Oh, no way.
So it's so psychedelic. The book is so psychedelic, but you know, like the idea is that the character of McMurphy, Jack Nicholson's character, and again, this is my own analysis. I don't know what the actual like literary analysis of it is. He represents an undomesticated human, and the people in the ward are humans that couldn't function in what he calls society the combine. They couldn't function in the combine, so they're being brought into the asylums to get like re-domesticated so they could function in the combine. And he represents like an undomesticated human who enters into like a conditioning center designed to melt people back down, build them back up, and send them out into the world and be good, functioning, domesticated humans. It's so good. It's so subversive, dude. It's such a brilliant, like, it's so funny how different the movie is from it. Like like Nurse Ratched, and again, because the narrator is Chief, the big Native American dude who's in the movie. That's the narrator of the book. It's being told from his perspective. So you don't know like how much of what he's reporting is real and how much is like he's in a mental asylum, right?
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
I know, it's so good. But according to him, Nurse Ratched can control time. She'll speed up time so that like a year goes by in a day, or slow down time so that like a second lasts like 10 years. And that's just one of the many ways that she's basically torturing the people in the ward.
Oh, my God.
She's constantly giving them drugs, tying them to their beds, and always this threat. This like threat is hovering, which is if you fuck up too much, if you get too angry at Nurse Ratched, who is a monster, essentially the way he describes it, it's the demiurge, just the Antichrist, then you know what happens? They're going to fucking give you a lobotomy. They're going to cut out your brain, turn you into a zombie.
And you know they really did that.
Yeah.
They really did that.
They really did that.
They really did that.
I had a professor in college who used to work at an asylum and was the weirdest dude ever. It was an awful class on like psychiatry. And
So, a lot of really bad shit went on in these places. Electroshock, lobotomies, just general human abuse. I mean, it's still going on in nursing homes right now, but no one considers that to be all that important, so I never hear it talked about, which is a shame. I also think that the internet archiving all the information is part of the reason we don't respect our elders anymore, because you used to have to go to them in order to get wisdom, and now it's cataloged on the internet, so they're pretty much ignored for the most part by society. It doesn't make me look forward to getting old, for sure. So now we don't have insane asylums, but what we have is tent cities in California, up and down the beaches. Because, I mean, if I was going to be homeless, that's where I'd go too. If I'm going to live destitute, I'm going to live where it's sunny all the time. There's tons of social programs. I'm going to get as much assistance as possible. And the beach is right there. I can surf, etc. Makes total sense. But you've also got it in small towns all the way across the United States. I see homeless people on the sidewalk talking to themselves, talking to nobody, not getting the care that they need, just being ignored by society. And there's a lot of social causes that we think are important, like, you know, respecting people's pronouns and getting people access to hormones that they don't naturally have, and transition their bodies to a different gender. Meanwhile, there's people starving on the streets. Meanwhile, there's people without homes. So our perspective on what is important is grossly warped. Whether whether you're in favor of progressivism or conservatism, our idea of what's important in this country is so fucking weird. And I think it's a symptom of things that develop in a vacuum where there is no more survival necessity anymore. There's people in third world countries that still need to get up and figure out how they're going to survive today. They're in a war zone. You know, people in Ukraine are not worried about what gender they are. They're worried about, am I going to get blown up today? Am I going to get food today? What's going to happen to me today? They don't have time for all this stuff. So in America, we've removed the necessity to go get food. We've removed the necessity to go do any of the basic survival things. We just go to our jobs and then we go home and we have all this leisure time, which at first is great, but if you don't have a good structure as to how you're going to use that time, it can often devolve into nonsensical pursuits and arguing for the sake of arguing, because you don't need to fight your neighboring tribe anymore to survive, so now you fight your neighboring tribe for entertainment because you're fucking bored.
He was kind of talking glowingly about lobotomies, and like someone asked him, like, I mean, what happened to the person? And he goes, they became a very good patient.
Oh my God.
Totally was fine with the fact that they were like sticking chopsticks in people's brains, severing
Ice
the
pick. Ice picks.
dude. It's with a hammer, wearing that weird outfit. Why are they dressed like
Yep.
that?
And they did a lot of those.
50,000. They did 50,000 lobotomies
Is credited with the majority
in the
of
50s.
So are they holding this guy
1949
down
to
while they're doing this, or is he
1953 primarily.
anesthetized?
I don't know.
I don't
Go through
see
the eyeball.
any
I see a
anesthesia.
strap.
I see straps, and I see people holding his arms. Jesus Christ. You know how fucking terrifying that must be to feel that rod going into your brain
Yeah.
and knowing they're going to turn you into a vegetable?
Yeah. Electroshock.
Dude, do you remember that guy that was running for vice president who had to admit that he went through electroshock therapy?
No.
Yes. It was during the McGovern Nixon campaign. Eagleton. It was McGovern's campaign, right? Yeah. McGovern was like one of the last hopes. He was one of the last, like, truly rational, what you really want out of someone that you consider a liberal, someone who's a compassionate, strong person who people thought that, he could win. They thought that he could win.
Yeah.
And it says 72, over 2 weeks after the 1972 Democratic Convention, Eagleton admitted the truth of news reports that he had received electroshock therapy for clinical depression during the 1960s. McGovern initially said he would back Eagleton 100%, 1,000% rather, but he didn't. He eventually had to let him go, and then it was too late. and
Wait,
then
that's what took him out?
That's what took him out.
What?
So I'm 38. If you're younger than me, you may not remember a time when seeking mental help was frowned upon and embarrassing, and you kept it secret. You didn't want anyone to know that you had to seek mental help. Everybody acted like they were fine. Everybody's fine. Nobody's got any problems. And the people that admitted it and went and got help to better themselves were shamed if they found out. Oh, shame. Shame. Ding, 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 ding. Shame. So, you can't win. Nowadays, it's like, go get mental health, and then the mental health industry is overwhelmed and not up to the task. Back then, it was frowned upon, so people just didn't go seek it, and the people that were in the system were almost in there voluntarily or had severe problems. That's part of the reason people didn't want to go get help, is because the only people that were in that ecosystem were people that were very, very, very troubled. They were not functioning autonomous human beings in most cases. They needed help.
Oh.
Yeah.
Holy
Electroshock
shit.
therapy for depression. Just for depression.
Don't people
you
say
would
it
be
works?
awarded if you had depression today. Today in this victimhood society,
Oh, right.
if you said this vice president, he suffered from clinical depression, but he sought help, he would be a shining example Look at
a
him.
beacon of
Yeah.
hope.
He's like us. He was clinically depressed. He got over it. He's a hero.
Yeah.
Instead, they shit
And
canned him.
then people would be fine with it.
Yeah, back then.
Back then, it was a giant sign of weakness.
Mhm.
And they would shock your
Pussy.
brain with,
I think it works.
whoa.
It doesn't
try
have
it.
good results. I would rather not. It's
Maybe
if
it's
you
like smelling salt.
have you watched
on your
videos
nipples.
of it? Because it's not like they're like vaulting you the whole time. They put these rods on your head, and you like convulse for a second. It's very disturbing to
Maybe
watch.
it's like a reset, like Control Alt Delete for your brain.
Maybe it's like maybe it's doing like something similar to what
Right.
the psychedelics are doing. It's
Maybe
just
it's bringing you to a near-death experience because your body thinks it's being electrocuted. So
Yeah.
maybe it releases all of those psychedelic chemicals that
Yeah.
they think it releases when you're in near-death experiences.
Joe, genius. All right, so this one is gonna be fun. This one discusses psychedelic use and its effects on the ego. So, buckle up.
I heard you say that you believe that what psychedelics do is make the mind more fertile for these experiences. Is that
Yes.
a good way to
Yes, that's exactly what I think. I think you're at that level where the ego's control has dissolved to some degree. And so it's like fertile ground. And so if you've, whatever, pre-trained, or if you're ready for a mystical experience, you're more likely to have it in that experience, in that state of mind.
So the mind is actually restricting us in many ways through the ego from having these experiences.
Yes, I think so.
And what psychedelics do is release those boundaries.
Yes. I think that due to the evolution of man, Homo sapiens, and taking the ape taking the upright position, this is a theory I was introduced to in 1966. And actually, I think a lot of the details are probably wrong, but in concept, I think is true, which is the ape standing upright. One thing people haven't taken into account is, obviously there are hundreds of acids of standing upright. You free your hands, you run faster, you see further, all of that. But in the upright position, gravity is against the blood in the brain. Because in the brain there are two fluid volumes, blood and cerebral spinal fluid, which is water, basically, which is made in the brain itself. So it has kind of squatter's rights in the brain. So when you're in the upright position, gravity is pulling the blood down. So I think probably with the upright position we lost a small proportion of our blood supply. I mean, some animals, if you tie them upright, a dog, for instance, if it's tied up so it can't get down, it will start howling and go mad. Because
So, I don't know where she's going with this. I haven't previewed this episode, but I want you to picture this. I want you to picture Homo sapiens, the oldest remains of this genius of our human evolution, the latest iteration. We've found remains that are 300,000 years old, and there's speculation that where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, I guess that would be if there's fire, then there should have been smoke prior. So there's speculation that there are older remains out there yet to be discovered. So we could be older than 300,000 years. So for 300,000 years of evolution, you are rewarded for having things like tribalism and anxiety. Anxiety would make it so that you're more likely to go get meat, store meat for the winter because you're anxious about having enough. Or get firewood, you're anxious about having enough. Or wake up in the middle of the night because you're anxious about getting attacked. So this is a great attribute for survival. And then picture, over those 300,000 years, just in the last 100, we removed the necessity for survival and hunting and all these things that evolutionarily under survival conditions were rewarded and were evolved through breeding and survival to become part of the fabric of our being. Like, the best suited humans to survive in a wild environment are those who are anxious and aggressive and defense oriented and organized. And then you remove all the need for those things and you say now anxiety is a bad thing, and you wonder why people are getting depressed, and you're medicating people because, oh, you have ADD, you're all over the place, you're trying to do a million things at once. We just want you to sit in school and look at a book. Well, geez, for 300,000 years, I would get killed if I sat and read a book all day. I would have food in stored up for the winter. Nothing would get done if I sit here and read a book. I have to do a multitude of different things, and I have to keep track of them. I have to keep up with them, and I have to take them seriously. And now it's all become a joke, and our brains have not caught up to the fact that we no longer need these things, and they are no longer being evolutionarily rewarded. In fact, we are trying to medicate this shit out of ourselves, so that if we ever go back into those situations, we'll be poorly equipped to handle them. We just don't understand what we're doing, fundamentally. And so the smartest people out there are the ones that at least understand that. And from a point of understanding, you can then grapple with trying to understand it. The real ignorance is in people who think that they are masters of the universe. We don't even understand the fabric of reality that we live in. Dark matter makes up 70% of the known matter in the universe. Oh, energy. Sorry, I always get these confused. Right here. 68% of the universe is dark energy. Dark matter, 27%. The rest, everything on Earth, everything observed with all our instruments, all normal matter, adds up to less than 5% of the universe. Do you still think that any human being is a master of reality? You think anybody has a fucking clue about what's going on? If you do, man, I don't know how you managed to bury your head in the sand so deeply, but congratulations. I give you the Darwin Award for being an idiot.
It hasn't got the valves to keep the blood up. And we've obviously got a certain amount, but maybe we lost some blood at that upright position. And as a compensation for that loss, I think we developed an internal mechanism more than any other animal has done it, which is to direct the blood where it most needs to go. Obviously, all animals do that. They have the power to send the blood where it's most important to survival or whatever. And I think that through the use of the conditioned sound, the word, we learned to control that process more than any other animal. And over the millennia, we kind of built up our power to do that. So I think that's the secret of why humans, which is just a talking ape, got control of the whole game because of our creation of language, which enables us to do all these incredible things we do.
Yes.
But it also has a disadvantage that our basic state is slightly low in blood in the dominant organ. So we have to keep this mechanism of tight control where the blood is distributed. And that is evolved with the ego, which is essential. I mean, we wouldn't survive without the ego to kind of direct the blood where it's most needed. People who lose their ego.
Part of what used to feed the ego in a healthy manner was community engagement. If you were part of the fabric of your community, like you're the cooper, so you make barrels, it's not just that people like you on a personal level and you give them good prices. You are part of the fabric of their survival. Without barrels, they can't pickle food, they can't store food, they can't store liquid. So not only are you part of the community, but you are contributing to everyone's survival. And so your ego, under those circumstances, was partially fed through community engagement and engagement with other people. And now that everything costs money, and you know, you no longer know your plumber, it's just some guy you get off the internet and they come and it's an exchange of money and that's it. There's no appreciation. Oh, thank you, but it's not, you don't know this guy. He's not your neighbor. You're not giving him a loaf of bread. Hey, I'll see you at church on Saturday. You know, like, that's community. And that's part of the reason that that we're so fucked up. Is that's another thing we've lost. We've departed so far in such a short period of time from conventional existence. And we've come up with this whole new system where, you know, movies like The Matrix are made, and we're in pods, you know, connected. Maybe that's not true at a mechanical, at a physical level, but it's certainly true at a, for lack of a better word, at a metaphysical level, where for all intents and purposes, we are in some sort of simulation because we've divorced ourselves from reality and nature, to the point where even if it's not an electronic simulation, it's like a simulation of life. It's like this is how we live on Earth now. We live in floating skyscrapers on upside down islands, and you know, we fly with rockets on our shoes or some crazy shit like that, upside down, you know, just flying shoes that hold us upside down like bats, and we fly from place to place. Like, I'm exaggerating for illustrative purposes, but that is how ridiculous our current living situation is compared to how it used to be. Just the amount of video content there is to be consumed. It's so unnatural for people to go home every night and just be fully engaged in a solo situation and not really need to go out for entertainment, to go see other people for entertainment, to go out to a social situation for entertainment. You're in your house and you've got access to more information and human experience that's been recorded than maybe has ever happened prior. I don't even know how to you know, make that a quantity, but I'm just saying, now that you've got 8 billion people instead of a couple 100 million people, and you're capturing it all, and you're not interacting with the other humans unless it's through a phone or a device, no wonder there's mental illness. No wonder people can't cope with the stresses of their modern office.
And in the 60s, when people took large doses of LSD, as it was then, every day, sometimes
Still
they
LSD.
lost their ego. They
Still.
flipped out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one occasion of someone we knew who was in Ibiza, and he'd flipped out, and he put the key in the lock to open the door. Someone would say goodnight to him. He put the key in the lock and left him. And then in the morning he was still there with the key in the door because the head hadn't told him, turn the key to open the door. You know? So
Wow.
we need the words to keep us, you know,
Yes.
under control.
Yeah.
So the words have made us what we are, this incredible animal who can, you know, have a nuclear war if we want, or know all the atoms in the body, all of those brilliant things we do, which is amazing. But we're also obviously a very deeply faulted animal at some point. We're, you know, neurotic, psychotic, psychotic, you know, all of those things because of this shortage of blood, and then the dependent on the meaning of the word. So if we have a terrible conditioning, which a lot of people do, you know,
Yes.
the separation from reality is, in a sense, in the meaning of the word.
Mm.
So the danger of our society now, in a sense, is we're getting further and further away from nature, in a sense. And that, in a way, is why psychedelics can be a very useful medicine because they increase the connectivity with the senses, with the internal bodily senses and also the outside perceptual senses. So I actually think that we're entering a kind of new possible age, and that's why for fun I call it the psychedelic age, because for the first time we've got, or getting, the knowledge by which we can actually understand the brain better.
Oh my god, so this lady drilled a hole in her head on video. There's a documentary. Oh my god. The film, titled Heartbeat in the Brain, shows her shaving her hairline. She drills a hole in her own head. And the film ends with footage of her bandaging her head and mopping up the blood from her face with water and cotton wool. Trepanation, from Greek word trepanion, meaning to bore, the creation of a hole in the skull, is the oldest known surgical procedure. Perforated crania up to 8,000 years old have been found in prehistoric sites all over the world. Some of the holes made by scraping away bone with a flint or obsidian knife until a piece could be pried out are the size of a man's palm. Other skulls have been pierced several times like a sieve. The majority of these apertures have soft edges indicating they had begun to heal, and there was a high post-operative survival rate. Archaeologists have speculated the operation was performed as a religious rite, an initiation in the priestly caste, or as a treatment for demonic possession. A hole in the head served as a mouthpiece to the gods, as it was thought, or a window that would allow bad spirits to escape. Good God. Jeez. She wasn't interested in performing the operation as an extreme form of body art, but she believed it would have a life-changing effect on her. She hoped that a hole in her head would increase what she terms cranial compliance, that alleviating the pressure in her skull would allow the heart to pump more blood to her brain, thereby giving her a new feeling of buoyancy. If you don't have that expansibility, she says, of the prison of inflexible bone that most of us have for skulls, then the heartbeat pushes against brain cells, which isn't very good. Oh, God. She tried to get a surgeon to do this in the 60s. They all refused. Jeez.
And understand how we can alter the volume of blood in the brain, which is giving the brain energy. The whole thing is about energy. The more energy we have, the more parts of the brain can function simultaneously. And that obviously can be very creative, stimulating, empathic, by just having more of the brain functioning. And so I think that the knowledge of psychedelics, and when I say psychedelics, I don't actually mean necessarily psychedelics, because as we all know, one can get these experiences endogenously through exercise or
holotropic breathing. Exactly, or breathing exercise. I mean, all the spiritual training all knew that. That's what they were doing in the spiritual disciplines, is teaching people how to control their internal ego and also their sense of consciousness. And I think at the center of the spiritual experience is the getting higher and loosening the grip of the ego, so you're more in touch with nature. Do you think that in the absence of these psychedelic experiences, one of the problems with words is that we develop narratives and then we use our ego to reinforce these narratives and we sort of deny objective reality?
Yes. I think more and more the word can become the reality. I mean, in the creation of words, which we all have and have to have and are thankful to have, but nevertheless it does create a slightly different world. It's rather like the shadows on Plato's wall. One gets one's internal edition of the world, rather than the real experience of the world. And so I think it's good to be in contact with nature, and I think it's a
I think most people don't spend enough time out in nature. I think it's good. Sometimes you should go out in the woods somewhere that isn't safe, somewhere out where there still are wild animals, and understand that you're not in control. You're in control when you're in the city, but even then, there's animals in the city. There's people that don't care about the fact that you're a human being, and they'll steal and rob from you, kill you just as quickly as an animal will out in the woods, just as quickly as a bear who finds that you've gotten between them and their baby and perceives that as a threat. They will maul you. There's people like that too. So I think that we delude ourselves often, and it's not good. It's not good to think you're invincible. It's not good to think that you're the master of your environment when you're truly not. You are living a delusional fantasy. And one night in the woods in a tent, hearing a large animal walk close to you, or wolves howling in the distance, will quickly rein in that stupid little shitty ego of yours, thinking that you are in charge. If you're in the water, you're in the shark's domain. If you're in the woods, you're in the carnivore's domain. You are not in charge of shit. You are a soft, fleshy bag of brains that can build things that can kill animals, but you are not very capable with your bare hands. This is her drilling a hole in her head, by the way. She cut out her shower cap to drill the hole here. That's pretty crazy.
dangerous path that we're taking now, where it becomes more and more life is the screen. But still, that's the way we're going.
Yeah.
And it has great advantages as well as dangers, kind of thing. But I do think that the knowledge of getting high has always been central to the human evolution. And at the earliest
Let's get high.
demonstrations
get
of
high.
what we've got,
High.
of the earliest demonstrations of human culture, say the caves in Chauvet. Do you know them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
amazing.
I think they've never
the
been
caves
better.
of Chauvet.
I mean, that
Way,
artwork,
way.
the brush strokes of
incredible.
those
Shut down.
animals, they're
Yeah.
alive. You can see the movement. No one ever did it better.
And it's like 30-something thousand years old?
Exactly, 35, 40, something around there.
Wow.
So I can tell, because I am, in some respects, an artist, I know those strokes.
Let's see. Pull up some of those images, Jamie, because some of those
Yeah.
images are. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
Amazing stuff.
they're just incredible, aren't they?
Yeah.
The movement of the animals,
Yeah, how they caught.
the feeling.
Yeah. They did create a feeling of movement, like the animals were running.
Yeah, and the lines. I mean, anyone who paints, Picasso, I think, said without them he would have never done what he did. Or I can't remember quite, but modern art isn't better. It gets as good, but not really.
It's crazy because they're depicting rhinos too, which is
Yeah.
really wild. There
Yeah.
was rhinos in France.
Yeah, beautiful ones of horses and buffaloes. And,
Yeah.
And that's in the bowels of the earth they do it. So it was obviously a very spiritual, because why go into the bowels of the earth if it's just a kind of magical
I bet they did this everywhere, but due to erosion, because this is probably sandstone caves. I don't know. But they probably did it a lot of places, but in the bowels of the earth is where it survives for 35,000 years, not on the surface. Maybe?
spiritual experience they're having.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's spiritual
And
too.
so I think without
I'm sure it
doubt,
was.
they were high. How they got there? Was it through singing, drumming, or singing, or was it through taking compounds? Funny enough, I've recently been introduced, met a charming man who's the archaeologist in charge of Chauvet. And I said, I'd love to be able to analyse and see if we can find out if there's any remnants of some psychoactive substance. And he said I was very welcome to go there. So I'm very excited about the possibility.
What type of rock? Limestone. Pretty soft. So if you did this on limestone outside, guess what? It gone. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that I was not too forceful. I'm not trying to tell you what to think, but I do have some. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated by the world, and I'm trying to harness that frustration and use it in a positive direction. So I apologize if it gets hijacked and I'm pushing the same type of agenda on you that I don't want pushed on me, that I don't want pushed. I am not trying to make anyone do anything that would not ideally be beneficial for each person at the personal level. I think we can all get better. I think that if we've done bad things, we deserve the opportunity for redemption if we're willing to put an earnest effort forth. I think that people with opposing ideas should speak to each other to solidify and sort out ideas on both sides. Challenge me. If I said something, leave it in the comments and tell me why you disagree with me. Challenge me. Tell me why I am wrong, and I will listen. I will give it consideration. I will give it thought. I want to be better. I want to make other people better. I am a humanist. I am an environmentalist because we live on this planet. I want to do good, you know? That's my goal. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to upset people, but at the same time, if that's what it takes is for people to get upset in order to be like, "Oh, what is going on over here?" How else do you do it? You know, I'd love some ideas on that, because I'm open to anything. I just want to see, you know, humans turn around and start being decent to each other, talking to each other. This constant fighting and chaos and disagreement all the time. We're not going to move forward as Americans together. We reached the pinnacle. We reached a leadership position not through fighting with each other, but by working together. And America is done mechanically, simply, if we cannot work together to move forward. If we are stuck here and we are just going to fight each other here, no more progress is to be made. We're just going to go back and forth and back and forth. We're going to shove each other back and forth. We're not turning and facing forward and marching together. We are fighting each other and going nowhere. I hope you guys have a great day, evening, night, whatever it is when you're watching this. Take care. Be good to each other. Big Booty Heroes, out.
I'm not suicidal. I would never kill myself.